your countryman's predicting second place here.
Yeah, he is my countryman, and poor old Derek's been a bit shuffled around in Formula One this year. He should be Grand Prix driving this year, but he's not, and maybe we'll see a bit more of him as in a regular IMSA driver in the Camel GT series in 1986, which would be great for the series.
Final moments as you're inside that car that is running in third, closing on A.J. Foyt. There's the leader another time. Al Holbert holding on, leading by a lap plus. He tries to get this one to stay together. It was in this hour. They had all those electrical problems and had to sit it out a year ago. The interval is shown at 8 2/10 of a second now. AJ doesn't want to give up that spot.
No, he's responded okay, and he's really going to have his work cut out to gain 8 seconds in about 7 minutes.
Jerry Garrett.
Well, Ken, if Derek Bell looks especially overwrought in this thing, he's thinking that he has finished in this race second 4 times, and his teammate Al Holbert at least twice. So they're hoping to shed that bridesmaid role, but these last few minutes are just heart-rending.
They don't know what bridesmaid is. At least they finished second 4 times.
Okay. Apparently less than 3 minutes left, we're told, to finish this race up with car number 14. Holbert out in front. Staying there, steadying that car. Derek Warwick now driving to bring out this car with the checkers, hopefully this afternoon in the 24 hours of Daytona. Second place taking a look back here for second and third place. And you see here the number 67 car. That's the second place car, and then the third place car that is the third place car, Busby. Derek Warwick driving, trying to close on A.J. Foyt in second. 8 2/10 of a second separating these 962s.
Ken, I think one of the things that we need to review a little bit here, perhaps, is the issue of strategy. We talked so much about it when we went on the air 24 hours ago. We need to, I think, look back to the decisions that crews and drivers have to make during the running of this race. Notably Al Holbert, but in the case of all of these teams. Bill, Adam, as you join us here in the STP Pit Center, we saw it throughout this event. A car would take the lead. Busby had it for a long, long time. The Foyt crew, Foyt, Hand, Sullivan, Lyondike had it for a while. And now late in the race, the Holbert, Bell, and Unser team have it. But in every case, they had problems. They came into the pits. They had to make major repairs. When they went back out onto the racetrack, they had to decide on the strategy. Here is the guy that you're seeing in the upper right there. That is Bob Holbert. That is Al Holbert's father. He was the champion of American road racing back when the series was called the U.S. Road Racing Championship, appropriately enough, and it was the premier prize in American competition. Bob Holbert won it, and he is now one of the key strategists in the Holbert pit. He and Junior put their heads together in the middle of the night. When they went back out onto the racetrack, they said, look, we're not going to try to catch up. We're going to dial the boost at the level we want. We're going to dial in a lap time of, I think it was about 1 minute and 50 seconds, and we're going to run, and we're going to hope that we finish. It's a strategy that looks like it's going to win the race. But the point that I have for you, Bill, and I'd like you to comment on it, is how do you make those decisions? How do you decide 6 hours, 12 hours, 18 hours into the race when you've lost 6 or 8 or 10 or 100 laps? How do you decide how fast to go when you go back out there?
Well, there's a certain amount of guesswork involved. Like some teams, the Dyson team, for example, I think took a bit of a risk, which unfortunately didn't pay off for them by running an extremely hard pace at the start of the race, and they subsequently suffered a fair bit of damage to their car through a crash.
And I'll interrupt just long enough to note that in our first show, you predicted that within the first 15 or 20 minutes of the race. You said he was bouncing off curbs and stuff. He was in trouble. They later hit the wall. Go ahead.
Very, very unusual to do that in a race like this, but Al Holbert has been around for such a long time and has shown his brilliance time and time again. I think he's assembled the absolute cream of the crop for all his people. His co-driver is a world champion. His crew chief and all his crew are so experienced with this car. They know exactly what they can get out of it.
Go ahead.
You certainly run into certain situations where unknowns can make a difference in the race. But by and large, if you play on probabilities, it's almost impossible to beat the Holbert strategy.
Well, the genius, I think, is the ability with 6 or 8 hours to go in the race to take a very small dart and throw it at a very big board, keeping in mind that they can run anywhere from a qualifying speed here of a lap of 1 minute 39 up to what would be an average mid-race lap for a front-running car? It'd be at least 10 seconds off that pace.
Yeah, I would imagine a 10-second gap would be very accurate, Dave. If you can run from a 147 to a 153 range for the entire race, you could probably average it out, just taking today's average speed and see that it would be in that bracket someplace.
And they've dialed that in perfectly. They picked their pace, keeping in mind, too, that that car has a broken sway bar in the back. They broke that sometime in the middle of the night. It was one of the things that forced them to make the decision to run conservative, save the car. They didn't want to take the time to try to fix it. They chose instead to simply back the pace down. But I think the thing that is most fascinating here in the STP pit center as we watch all those decision makers, well, we got a car in trouble out there.
We may have a flag coming out here in a pace car incident.
And that looks like the second place car in the GTU division. I believe that is the number 75 Reed, Hogdahl, Kendall, and Rinsler machine that has come to a stop. And you're exactly right. The car has stopped out there on the racetrack, and that might bring out a yellow flag.
I think it will, Dave.
That'd be an anticlimactic finish to this race, which will officially end at 3:34. It was about 4 minutes late getting underway here today. To make that final point, Hulbert made the right decision. Hulbert dialed in a speed for himself, for his co-drivers. His crew backed it up with the right logistical support. They predicted when they were 7 or 8 laps down, if we run this speed to the finish, we might have a shot at it. And lo and behold, he appears to be right by an interval of less than a couple of minutes here, because that looks like that's going to be the interval at the finish of this race. Although it may tighten up if that yellow flag comes out. We'll see a parade finish, which would be an anticlimax here. There's the driver climbing out.
I think with the driver getting out right now, Dave, one of the rules in IMSA and here at the Daytona Speedway is that if there is a car on the surface of the track, rather than the apron itself, they will put out a pace car. So we may have the race finishing under this situation.
That is the exit of the chicane, by my view. Would you
Bill?
It appears to be.
Bill, there's no sign of a caution flag being thrown here at the present time. We're looking down at the flag stand, and that Mazda RX-7 lies there, the California car. And with this close to the finish, I question now if they're going to drop a yellow on this.
I can't believe they would. A minute and a half to go. By the time the pace car got fired up and pulled out, it would all be over anyway.
Well, they could use the yellow in that one corner, and it would, you know, do the trick.
Apparently that's what they're doing. A.J. Foyt's car maintaining second. Here's the Hulbert car, still leading. I believe he'll get in just about one more lap. Here he is to the line, and I would think this would be the final lap for Al Hulbert. Here you see him coming into turn number 1. David, you've been here trying to win this race for years. You've been trying to win Le Mans. You must feel star-crossed about this. You came here with a brand new, potent BMW. Everybody said it was a potential pole sitter.
Well, it was, and it will be as the season unfolds. We're going to take a 2-car BMW team down to Miami in just a month and try and put it on the pole and try and win that one. But it was very, very disappointing. And it's not the first time it's happened to me here, because I was at the very, very first Daytona endurance race in 1962, and I didn't finish that one either.
Well, I'll tell you who else was here. The guy in second place, A.J. Foyt, was here in 62, and he was out in the first 2 laps. Then in 1967, remember when he won Indy for the 3rd time? He also won Le Mans that year, so he's got a little road racing experience.
He's got some good results under his belt,
David, we're now being told that there are 2 laps from here to the finish. That's the latest word, 2 laps to the finish. Now, does that get communicated down to their pit area?
I'm sure they'll be able to ask. The IMSA officials must know, yeah. They'll have one in their pit, and they'll ask him where. And at this stage, this is when the heart is really in the mouth. I mean, Al Hulbert's out there just hoping desperately to get these 2 laps rattled away. No reason why they shouldn't, but you just never know. Into that chicane for the last but one time.
So that's the old Dean. Any wise sayings here at Kanamaki as we get down to the end of this one?
Oh, well, I don't know. I'm here in Victory Lane counting medals, caps, and gifts and so forth. The security guards are here. It's going to be a wild scene. This has been probably one of the toughest 24 hours ever. I don't think that any car on the track right now would finish if this was a 26-hour race. They're all limping or gimping around this racetrack. It's really been tough on man and machine. Back to you.
Well, if that Lowenbrow car's got a broken rear sway bar, they must be having to take it very steady in the turns. Otherwise, they could really get rid of their front tires. It must be putting a lot of strain on their front tires with no rear sway bar.
Final lap right now for car number 14. Just went into his final lap. There you see Derek Bell perched up on the wall watching as car number 14 goes into turn 1 through that turn 2 area, which is where they
over the curb there. It'd be great, wouldn't it? Get pushed off by GTO Toyota the last lap.
And he's gathering up the second place car here. Down a lap, as we understand, is the number 8, the Preston Head car. Foyt made a real run. Lyondike did a great job for them. The Indy car Rookie of the Year, And of course, that Sullivan lad did a marvelous job.
Well,
He's been here twice before. Not exactly.
Sullivan's done a lot of road racing too. He did a lot of Can-Am. He was a very successful Can-Am driver before, and Formula One too. He drove one in Formula One for at least one season.
Porsche's angry. They don't like the rules, the extra weight that was added to them, but here they are again, first, second, and third.
It's tough to legislate against Porsche, and they do make racing cars, and they make them right, and there's just no getting away from it. It doesn't matter what you do with the rules, they're always going to be in the forefront.
Back they go into the banking for the final time in the 1986 24 Hours of Daytona. There you see the A.J. Foyt car pulling up, settling down to the end of this one.
He wants to hang alongside there because he wants to be in the obviously in the winning photograph.
Remember back in the early days when Ferrari came in here and lined them up side by side, 3 abreast? The days of Scarfiotti and Bandini, and I believe Pedro Rodriguez was part of that picture.
And then, of course, he drove here in the Porsche in '71. And hopefully that we'll see the end of the Porsche dominance of this class of racing in 1986. They come up to the flag line.
All right, coming down to finish it. And for Al Holbert, all those years of effort, those second place runs, 76, 80, and 85, about to end. Al Holbert's car, number 14, will win the most prestigious sports car race in the Western Hemisphere. The 24 Hours of Daytona belongs to Warrington, Pennsylvania team Al Holbert, and the drivers he collected for this race brought him home a victory in the one that has always escaped him. Derek Bell and Al Unser Jr. also responsible for the driving chores, and a great crew on that team has given them the one thing they were seeking. Their victory in the IMSA Championship last year was one thing. This has always been in their craw, however, to win this race.
Well, it certainly gets the season up to a flying start too, because there's a lot of valuable points at stake, and they prove they can finish these huge long distance race. The shorter races, they'll feel very, very confident as they go into the 86 season now.
We'll meet the drivers who have gone the distance for 24 hours and check the records, give you all the particulars on that in various categories as we see Derek Bell shaking hands with some of the folks along pit road. We'll be back with more from the 24 Hours of Daytona in Victory Lane after these messages.